Welcome back to another video. Today I'll be replacing the alternator on my 6-liter Powerstroke. If you've owned one for any sort of length of time, this will probably happen to you. If you do some research, you probably know what I'm talking about. For whatever reason, these alternators on these 6.0s like to die. I'm actually replacing my current one, which is a reman, with another reman. My alternator was just putting out low voltage, like low 13s, and it should be closer to 14 or like a little over 14. But anyways, it's very simple. It's one nut to hold the charging wire on, 3 bolts to hold the alternator to the engine, and then you have to take off the serpentine belt and go from there. It's pretty easy. So I'm going to show you how to do that today. All you need is a 10 mil for the nut on the power wire stud, and then you need a 13 mil to take off the bolts that anchor the alternator to the intake manifold. So let me show you how to do that right now. So this is the new guy right here. This is the orientation that my charging wire and sensor wire plugs were in. So in the engine it sits like that. So the two studs or 2 bolts will be on the passenger side and the single bolt will be on the driver's side. So if you look at it just like that, that's the orientation of the charging wire and the sensor wire plug. There seems to be a few different styles of alternator plug design or plug layout, so you just have to be careful and get the one that fits for you. Mine is a 2006 Powerstroke, and that is how mine is laid out. So first things first, gotta take off that belt, or at least take it off the alternator pulley. So to take off the alternator belt, really what you do is you pull on the belt itself, and then there's a tensioner down there, and what you'll do is there's a little metal tab that you push up. So you have to pull on the belt far enough that you can push up that locking tab on the tensioner. So let me see if I can do this with the camera in the way. So you can kind of hear that click where it's ready to get pushed into place. Let me show you again. Right there. So put your hand down there and just like that, it's locked into place. Let me see if I can show you. Maybe not, there's just a lot of stuff in the way, but when you're working on your own, you will know what I'm talking about. It's the automatic tensioner down there, and you'll just pull on the belt until you can push that little locking tab into place. Sorry for all the shadows here, but essentially at this point the belt just comes right off, and you want to take your 13 mil and just zip these bolts off. And the alternator is now free to move around. Alright, so take off the sensor wire plug, just push down on the tab and pull out, and your charging wire, at least on mine, is a 10 mil nut. So undo that. Set that wire off to the side. Be careful. I did not disconnect my batteries, so this is a live wire. If you want to disconnect your batteries and be safe, that is the recommended way. So now, alternator's free. Now I couldn't tell you why this alternator failed. It's apparently a remanufactured unit. It looks pretty clean, so it wasn't really on there for very long. But yeah, I guess 6-liter problems. So let's go put the new alternator in its place. Tighten that up to snug. Put the cap back on, don't want it to short out on anything. Plug sensor wires in. Yep, it's not going anywhere. Put the alternator back in its place. When running these bolts down, you want to be very careful. This goes into your intake manifold, and I believe the intake manifold is aluminum. And if you were to mess these threads up, you would be in a pretty difficult situation. So don't take the risk, just thread them down by hand a couple of turns before you use a ratchet or whatever method you'll use. I'm going to use the impact to drive it down till they're all the way down, and then I'll use a ratchet for the final tighten. Alright, all bolts are tightened. I just used a 3/8 ratchet with an extension and a 13 mil. Just snug them to tight. As you can see, the bolts are very accessible in the engine bay, so if you'd want, you can double check them later down the road just to make sure they haven't backed out. So, slip the belt on, alternator, and down there, everything hasn't been moved or anything. So to release the tensioner from its lock, just pull the belt, and then you can hear it click, and then tension is back on your system. Easy as that. It took like 10-15 minutes even with filming. Just double check your work and then start it up and see if you have good voltage. So there you have it. It's pretty straightforward and pretty simple to change your alternator on your 6-liter Powerstroke. Like I said, these alternators like to die quite frequently. This is probably the truck's 3rd or 4th alternator. Can't really explain to you why. It's kind of strange how some cars, the alternator will last the entire life of the car, 200, 300,000 miles, but the 6-liter Powerstroke alternator craps out after 50 or 100,000. I don't know, maybe it's the higher output, higher amperage output that shortens its life. Who knows? But fortunately, it's very simple to replace. It's like a 10-15 minute job, even with looking for tools. I got my replacement alternator on Amazon for $90 and some change, shipped to my door, Amazon Prime, so can't really beat that when the local auto parts stores are charging like $150 to $200 plus core for an alternator for this truck. So man, might be worth having one on hand just in case you find yourself in this situation on the road. Just make sure you bring a 13 mil socket and ratchet and a 10 mil socket and ratchet, and you could do this job on the side of the road. Anyways, thanks for watching. Give this video a like if it's helped you. Sub to the channel if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next video.